The Montreal Canadiens are quietly cooking with this as Hughes continues to work the lines. We do have a big update on the Jordan Kyrou situation, but that's not the big story we're talking about today, as there's a big update on Zachary Bolduc and how Martin St. Louis and the Montreal Canadiens see his role with the organization moving forward. We got to dive into the big Kyrou trade update about his no trade clause, what the Habs seemingly are doing with Zachary Bolduc, and a very interesting list of the top defensemen in the NHL where Montreal's very well featured. All that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. But before we get into it, whoa, we are almost at 22,000 subscribers. That's such a huge number. We're less than 400 away. You guys have been supporting us like crazy recently. This offseason's been a ton of fun. Thank you all for tuning in. If you haven't hit that free button, we got videos coming every single day. And let's start with, this was Jay Fresh. Now, Jay Fresh, you guys know Jay Fresh. If you don't, go follow him on X. A lot of great stuff, but there was a fan vote. 6,200 voters, 504,000 votes cast for the 2025 defenseman ranking. Now, you'll need to turn your resolution up to HD to see this one, but there are a lot of Habs here, and don't worry, I'll narrow in on the top 25. I'll say a couple of Habs that are lower down on this list. You got Alex Carrier coming in at number 99. You got Cayden Guhle at number 76. You got Mike Matheson at 84. But the big news here is that we have two players featured in the top 25. Now, this is a fan vote, so again, it means about as much as what you or I thinks, where we would have these guys even higher. Sure, some fans have them lower, but like, hard to argue with the top 5 there. But what I will say is that the fan vote had Lane Hutson and Noah Dobson both in the top 25 of all defensemen in the NHL. Now, again, you probably would say Lane Hutson should be higher, and I would tend to agree with you, for sure. Noah Dobson could very well be higher. Some Islanders fans might say he should be lower. Go look at what Islanders fans were saying before the actual big rumors came out about Dobson, and after, their opinion changed pretty drastically. I'm just saying. But regardless, having two Habs here in the top 25 of all defensemen in the league by fan vote just shows that something very special is brewing here. And look, I mean, I think Cayden Guhle especially is one of these guys that's primed to just absolutely climb. Like, you know, there are great defensemen ahead of Guhle, guys like Ivan Provorov, Sean Durzi, Jake McCabe is great, Michael Kesselring's good, but I honestly think if Cayden Guhle has a healthy season this year, he's going to be knocking on the door of the top 50. Again, we'll see what the offensive production is going to be like for Cayden Guhle, but leave your thoughts on this down below. How do you feel about Lane Hutson, Noah Dobson? Do you think Hudson's too low like I do? Regardless, they have Dobson higher than Hutson, which is crazy, but there's a lot of high praise for the Habs, for Habs fans, for Habs players, and it's just going to keep getting better. But we're going to move on to something else very interesting in this video here, and you know, we're going to go straight into Jordan Kyrou, as there was a big report from Dans les Coulisses, from Maxime Truman, and he said exclusive, Jordan Kyrou would accept to get traded to the Montreal Canadiens. And I just want to go in to get the exact quote here. And he said, basically, this is in French. I'll maybe do a bit of French and English. I know we got people who speak both languages in that wonderful comment section. Or, selon d'excellentes sources près du dossier, l'agent de Kyrou aurait demandé au cours des derniers jours à son client s'il accepterait de lever sa clause de non-échange. Basically, asked him over the past few days, hey, would you waive your no-trade clause to go to Montreal if a trade were to be completed around you? And Jordan Kyrou said, yeah, of course. Now, again, it says, bien sûr que oui. I don't know if that's a direct quote from Jordan Kyrou being super enthusiastic. Probably not, if we're being real. But in essence, he said, yeah, he would waive his no-trade clause to go to Montreal. And because this is an interesting update, right? Now, I know a lot of you have probably seen this news already today, which is why I have this Bolduc thing coming a bit later that you're going to really be interested in. But I believe Kyrou and I think Nick Suzuki and I think Noah Dobson are all represented by the same agency. So, like, there's a connection there, and I'm sure, like, people have put in a good word about Montreal for Jordan Kyrou. Maybe Bolduc himself has already said, hey, listen, come and join me, buddy, you know? And now it is interesting because newly drafted Justin Carbonneau, again, Quebec native for St. Louis, said he looks up to Jordan Kyrou. But to see this quote, to see this come out, that he absolutely would waive his no-trade clause, this makes a lot of sense when it comes down to why we're hearing all these rumors about Montreal still in on the Jordan Kyrou situation. And let me just, I'm not going to go through this whole thing again where it's like, well, should we have Jordan Kyrou? Should we not have Jordan Kyrou? He's not the 2C we want. Would he play center? No, he probably wouldn't. At the end of the day, what Jordan Kyrou gives you is a bona fide top 6 talent that would play first line on a lot of teams. Probably wouldn't for Montreal, but who knows, right? He'd be a bona fide first or second line winger. And that is something you don't take for granted, right? Because Zachary Bolduc, we think he could be that. Right? He looked really good this year. Kyrou is that. And that's where that certainty comes from. There's a lot of chatter about it being Matheson plus a bunch of other stuff for Jordan Kyrou, which again makes sense because St. Louis is looking to spend more on the defensive end. But, you know, I'd take a lot to get Matheson off Matheson's contract plus to get Jordan Kyrou. I'm a little worried about what that return would be, but if it were to happen and that's the framework, I wouldn't totally mind it. So just had to talk about that update because it's honestly a bit insane that this seems like it actually could happen. Again, like we saw with the Dobson thing, like we even saw with the Bolduc thing. It was like we heard Kyrou rumors, Habs and St. Louis talking, boom, a trade gets done. Wasn't for Kyrou. We heard Habs and Islanders are talking, boom, Noah Dobson is moved as soon as the rumors get intense. So very interesting stuff, but I have a very, very interesting bit of information here. Now, take this with a grain of salt for sure, but this is from Malcolm Normandin, runs Absolument Fan. Go check him out as well. Now, he had said some stuff as well about Pascal Vincent leaving the AHL for an NHL assistant coaching job. That hasn't come to fruition yet, but this is a very interesting thing because he had a source that apparently said that he saw this happen. So here it is in French for you French viewers. Here it is in English as well. I'm told that Marc Bureau, we know Marc Bureau, the face-off specialist for the Montreal Canadiens. He's worked with a lot of players in the past. We've actually seen Slav taking some face-offs with Marc Bureau before. So, you know, again, it's not necessarily a huge report, but the face-off specialist for the Montreal Canadiens has been specifically tasked by the team. Now, this is interesting. This isn't just taking Slav to the side of practice. This is a pretty significant report, specifically tasked by the team to perfect Zachary Bolduc's face-off skills. The two men conducted an intensive training session today on a Quebec rink that focused solely on face-offs. Interesting. And he goes on to say later that his source told him that he watched it, and that's pretty much all they did for 15 minutes. It was Marc Bureau, it was Zachary Bolduc taking face-offs. And when you look at the Habs, going forward, when you look at Zachary Bolduc, this guy played a couple of seasons as a full-time center in junior, and this dude was dominant playing at center. He won with the Quebec Remparts there back in 2022-23. He had 55 goals, 99 points in 21-22, 50 goals, 110 points the next year, including 11 goals, 19 points in 18 playoff games. So Bolduc, while he hasn't been a full-time center at the NHL yet at all, like he hasn't even really had stretches where he's been a center. He's been a full-time winger since he came to the league. He has the ability to play center. Now, again, playing center at the NHL, it's not just about faceoffs. Let's be real here, right? There's a lot more to it than just faceoffs. We'll go back there. It's a lot more to it than just faceoffs. But to hear that there could be some rumblings of him going back to his junior position for Montreal, it actually starts to make a lot of sense for me because, you know, we've heard the rumblings as well about Ivan Demidov and whether he would end up playing center. We're not so sure yet. Again, he's still young, but Bolduc is now caught up to the NHL game. The second half of last year, he even said himself, he's like, you just got to prepare for the intensity. You got to fight every single shift, every single time you're on the ice, even in practice, right? That's the kind of stuff he has said. That's his attitude. It would not shock me if he put in a ton of work to become good at faceoffs and to perfect that two-way game at the center position. Now, there is a caveat with that, of course, because Zachary Bolduc, again, without having played center much at the NHL level now, he was a fantastic defensive winger last year at 5v5, like we've gone over before. His metrics were very, very good. Like, by some places, they had him in like the 90-plus percentile, some places in the 75th. Regardless, he was up there near the top of the league in terms of 5v5 defense as a winger. And at center, you do have a lot more responsibility, of course. Your defensive role changes, your offensive role changes, and who knows how easy it would be for him to adapt to that. But the idea that we could have him running some faceoffs, have him be the center, again, we know Montreal has a couple of options here. There's the Joe Veleno thing. Please no, I don't really want that. Like, if we sign him, great. If we don't, whatever. Evgeny Kuznetsov, who knows? We know we want a left shot center. This is one of the potential solutions, right? Again, after losing Dvorak, we've been talking about whether getting that 2C or just getting a left-hand shot center. And my thought is, if we're not confident running only right shot centers this year, like, again, Newhook can play center, but his face-up percentage is kind of 41%. We'll see if he's going to be a full-time center this year. Regardless, we want another. If we want a solution from within, this is one of those. It might not be the A option, which is get a left-hand shot 2C that works great. It might not be the B or C option, where it's like go out and get maybe a less talented left shot center. It might be the D option. I don't even know. But it is seemingly an option for Zachary Bolduc to eventually play center. Maybe if not this year, maybe in the future. So keep an eye on that, because I think we're sneakily cooking something very interesting here. But let me know your thoughts on all this stuff, on Kent Hughes cook and the Jordan Kyrou stuff, Zachary Bolduc. Things are getting very exciting now as the days go by, and I know you guys are tuning in for the ride the whole time, but that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in every single day, and hey, while you're here, help us hit that 22,000 subscriber mark. We'd really, really appreciate it. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch you on the next one.